Right now, we had a conversation yesterday about drought and corn and ethanol, and people started calling in saying, we're burning our food. But I got other questions for Monte Shaw from Renewable Energy. How you doing, Monte?
Well, I think I'm doing okay until you start asking me the questions.
I didn't ask you the question. I'm just telling you what the phone calls were yesterday. And you can make those phone calls again, by the way, if you want to talk to Monte directly at 284-1040, 800-469-4295. I do have a question, though, Monte. We got a drought. We got 38% of the crop is essentially destroyed. Another 38% of the crop is good-ish. And I don't know what the middle amount is doing, but it isn't doing very well. And every day that this goes on, it's getting worse. So isn't that your raw material?
It is. For the ethanol industry, corn is the product that we bring in and remove the starch from to produce the ethanol.
Mm-hmm. So what happens if you don't have any?
We shut down. I don't say that flippantly. It's economic reality. In fact, right now, the ethanol industry is operating at the lowest level of production in over 2 years. I think that we're going to see that production continue to drop as the market allocates where the corn goes. And, people will choose hamburgers over the extra non-essential driving, and that's going to drive gasoline use down. It's going to drive ethanol use down, and we're going to have to find a way through it.
So have we not discovered a fundamental flaw in the whole ethanol industry? If we get a drought, we lose ethanol.
Well, I don't think it's a flaw. It's something that we've dealt with before. We dealt with it in '96. This is obviously the most severe drought we've had since the ethanol industry has made up a significant portion of our gasoline. And, we also have things called oil embargoes or hurricanes off the Gulf or other things that can affect our fuel supply, and we'll have to deal with it. And you do risk management, and you contract corn, and the market will allocate where it goes. Right now, we're seeing that the industry that's pulling back first is us, and that's probably makes sense. There's going to be other times when we have a surplus of corn, and not only will we be able to sell the typical blends like E10, but other higher level blends are going to be very attractive. So we have to kind of ride that commodity roller coaster.
So we're shutting down plants. People being put out of work right now?
Yeah. In Iowa so far, we've been lucky that we have not had a plant shut down completely. We have had plants dramatically reduce production, but in other states, in all the surrounding states, Indiana, Illinois, Nebraska, and others, we have had plants completely shut down, lay off people. That has a big impact on those local rural communities, and it's something that's tough. At the same time, that when you're in the commodity business, you have to deal with these types of things. I think the industry is in a pretty good position to ride this out. Obviously, no one in any industry wants to see a drought for more than 1 year, but we're going to have a tough year. It's going to have a hard impact on Iowa's economy. And
is it going to have an impact on fuel prices?
I think so. I think, oil prices are back up. Ethanol was selling just a month ago for $1 a gallon less than gasoline on the wholesale markets. And we're still cheaper than gasoline, but not by much today. And so you're going to see the non-essential use of ethanol back out. You're going to see crude oil go up. One of the things that Iowa State found was that because we supply 10% of the domestic fuel supply now, ethanol really dramatically lowers gasoline prices over $1 a gallon. And if we pull back from that, the reverse will happen.
We say if we pull back from that. I mean, if we've got a devastating drought, we are going to pull back from that, aren't we?
Well, it's too soon to say. That is certainly one possibility. I'm an optimist. I'd like to think that these weather forecasters can be wrong, and that God will send some rain down, and we can still have about half of a really good crop here, and the rest won't be obliterated, but it's not going to be very good. That doesn't necessarily won't happen. We'll know more in 3 or 4 weeks. But even then, you're going to have corn. Not every, some places here, even in Iowa, have caught rain. I know down where I'm from in southwest Iowa, it's not good, but it's not horrible like it is around here. So we're going to have some corn, and the market will allocate that. Obviously, it's going to go to feed and whatnot. But one thing to remember is, when we produce the ethanol, we're producing feed as well. We just use the starch for the ethanol, all the protein and the oils and the fats that the cows and the chickens and
producing animal feed. We're not producing human feed, right?
Correct. None of the corn. And this is maybe one fundamental thing to get out there, because even in Iowa, I'm always surprised how many people don't realize this. None of the corn, not a kernel of corn that goes to an ethanol plant, is human grade corn, like sweet corn or that you get on the cob this time of year, that you go buy the bag of niblets in the grocery store. That is all sweet corn. We use field corn. Field corn goes exclusively for industrial and animal uses, and we just essentially take the starch out. I like to say the cow doesn't need any more starch in their diet than I need mine, and all the true feed value of that kernel of corn goes right back into the feed markets in what's called distillers grains.
Let's grab a call, shall we? Let's go to Mike. Hi, Mike. How are you doing today? Hello, Mike. No, Mike's not there. Andrew, see what happened to Mike. Let's go to Roger. Hi, Roger.
Hi there. I'm so thankful that you took my call, and actually I've called before with the same info, but this time it's even more pertinent than before. I have a van, a Dodge Caravan. It's 2010. I have a 2008 Prius, and I've carefully run studies of my own using only those fuels, not mixes, but my van is an E10 or E85 capable van, and so I've sampled all the different fuels, and I've studied what the price variance has to be before it's worth it for me to buy E85. In my van, I get 19 with no alcohol gas. I get 17 with E10, and I get 11.5 to 12 with E85. So the difference in fuel price, when he mentioned a moment ago the dollar difference, that's actually where it had to be for me to just barely break even on buying E85 instead of non-alcohol gas.
So you're saying if price goes up, it's absolutely not worth you buying it. Monte, let's let Monte come back.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, essentially what that would say is that your van on E85 is operating about 39% efficiency, which there's no doubt there's a drop in fuel economy with E85. That's not a surprise. The important thing to understand is it's not the BTUs in the fuel, it's the BTUs that the engine uses. And actually, because of its higher oxygen content, the engines and the FFVs, the flexible fuel vehicles, use more of those BTUs. They're more efficient. So I drive an FFE. You're going to lose I lose about 13 to 15% fuel economy on E85 compared to the E10. So that's if your sole decision to buy E85 is cost per mile, then that's what you're going to want to see if you're in like a Ford or Chevy. Typically, according to some government data, the Mopar products don't work as well. They're going to see about a 20% drop in efficiency. So that's what you should look for. And if you like that, buy E85. If you don't, that's fine. Of course, I'm going to buy E85 anyway. I mean, people pay premium prices for premium products. I like a fuel that's 85% Iowa made, that doesn't send dollars to the Middle East, that helps create jobs and economic activity here. So I take other things into my fuel purchase. But if you are strictly on price, then depending on your make and model, you're going to want to see about a 15% savings with E85 for most cars, and then for some of the Chryslers, you're going to want to see a little bit more.
Okay, so let me understand this, Monte. This big drought is, you're kind of saying two things. You're saying it isn't affecting us and it is affecting us.
Well, there's no doubt.
One of those two things cannot be true.
Well, there's no doubt it's affecting us, but I think there's an idea out there that, somehow with the drought we'll produce no corn, and so the entire industry will have to shut down. And that's not the case. The USDA, even after whacking their projections of corn yields 20%, is still predicting a corn harvest larger than we had in, say, 2006, not too many years ago, because corn varieties are better. There's some more acres planted to corn, and so farmers were responding to the marketplace. Now, I have no doubt the USDA will have to trim that estimate even more, but the fact of the matter is we're still going to harvest billions of bushels of corn this year. So are all corn users going to have to make some tough decisions? Absolutely. Livestock producers are going to have to make some tough decisions about the size of their herds. Ethanol plants are going to have to make tough decisions about how much to produce, whether to stay open. But we're not talking about literally running out of corn. The market will allocate it and bring the demand in line with the supply. We may import corn this year. Who knows? South America may have a bumper crop.
wouldn't that be absolutely disastrous for Iowa to import corn? I mean, the magnitude of what you just said in...
Not the... Would you rather be having a value-added industry operate and employing Iowans or shut down completely?
I just don't know that I want to ever see Iowa importing corn.
Well, I don't ever want to. Let me be very clear. I don't ever want to, but we're talking about the worst drought since the 50s. Yeah. And there's just economic realities of that. We were talking during the break that, if you snapped your fingers and eliminated the ethanol industry, you wouldn't change the position we're in right now. You'd be dealing with a smaller corn crop, less acres planted, because farmers, right now there's no farm program price supports that are subsidizing overproduction like we saw in the 80s and 90s. So without that, farmers are going to plant to the market. And then if there's, whether ethanol is a part of that market or whether ethanol didn't exist, then when you have a historic drought, you're going to have a shortage and there's going to be supply and price impacts. And so it's not really an ethanol thing. We produce so much more corn today than we did 10 years ago. Yep. We still use more corn for other things than we used to.
All right, you said the biggest drought in 50 years. Most people are saying 25.
Well, I'm now reading that we've blown back past 88 and we're back to something like 1956 or something like that. I'll defer to the experts on that. All I know is it's not good out there.
All right, let's bring Dale on the phone. Hi, Dale. Can you make it quick, please?
You bet. If it does get to the point where farmers are cutting corn for silage, aren't we able to use the stalks and what is left to still make ethanol rather than just the kernel corn?
Good question. Monte?
Short answer is not this year. Two plants are being built in Iowa as we speak that will have that capability, and that's really some of the future where we can use things other than the kernel of corn, what we call cellulosic ethanol. And we're literally, about a 12, 18-month construction cycle away from doing that, but that technology has not been commercialized to date.
All right, let's bring John on. Hi, John.
That'll be John?
Yes.
Yes, I was want to ask Mr. Monte why we couldn't use sorghum. Sorghum is growing for Pelican Ford in Cedar Rapids and Lynn County, thousands of acres. It's much richer, and they make molasses out of it, by the way. And it'd be much better than corn, I would think. Plus, they can harvest it with the green stalk, and that can be for silage.
Yeah, we do use grain sorghum in some areas, particularly in the drier areas out in the west and southwest where corn doesn't grow as well. But what you have is how many bushels can you get off the acre? And like I said, we just use the starch out of the corn. So a huge part of the reason farmers grow that corn isn't just to give us the starch for ethanol, but it's the feed value. And where you can grow corn, you're typically going to make a lot more money for that farmer producing the bushels per acre they can with corn, which is much greater than with sorghum. But sorghum's a fine feedstock for ethanol, and we still have a feed product that comes out of sorghum as well.
So corn went to the highest price ever.
Ever, yep.
At what point does it become uneconomical to be producing ethanol? Are we going to see at our gas pumps that regular unleaded is going to be cheaper than mid-grade?
We'll have to watch that. I don't think so, because I think the market will allocate that out. What you have to understand,
what does that mean?
Well, the market's going to decide how much ethanol to produce versus how much to send to other uses, industrial uses, feed uses, and then it's going to also, and here's something people understand, ethanol at the blend levels that we buy, E10, E15. Now, E85 is different, but that's a very small market. At the E10, E15 level, ethanol does not replace gasoline. It replaces octane components in gasoline, which cost way more than gasoline. So even when ethanol is slightly more expensive on the wholesale than gasoline, it's still actually reducing the cost of that fuel blend because it's replacing things like isooctane and alkylate and benzene and xylene and all these things that are even more expensive. So we're still not there yet. Could we hit that position? We could.
How much longer does this have to go on in the 30 seconds I've got remaining before we've got a real crisis? How much longer can we go? I've just looked at the weather forecast, no rain for 10 days.
I grew up on a farm. I like to call myself a farm kid, but I've been off the farm for 20 years. It's bad. It's going to get worse. And
how long?
I'm not.
10 seconds.
I don't know, but I'd like to see rain before I get home tonight. I don't think that's going to happen.
No, it's not.
And that's when the market will kick in and people will make decisions.
Monte Shaw, thank you very much for joining us today. We really do appreciate it. We'll have you back. News Radio 1040 WHO.